Welcome to the Cruise TV, the show where we focus on the stories and the people behind some of the most amazing rides on the road. I'm your host, Stephanie Lastoria, and I'm coming to you from Haggerty Garage and Social in Burlington, Ontario. On this episode, we will be looking at Corvette, America's sports cars. 2003 Chevrolet Corvette Z06, a 2008 Chevrolet Corvette Z06, and a special story about a 2012 Chevrolet Corvette Grand Sport. Stay tuned, guys.
It's a 2003 Chevrolet Corvette Z06. I bought the car brand new from Lee Monroe Chev Olds in Paris, Ontario in the year 2003. I first seen this car in a Road and Track magazine. They were featuring this Z06. The car was coming out shortly. I just fell in love with it. I previously owned a 1969 Corvette 350 horse. I regrettably sold the 1969 Corvette, and the one I have today, I have no plans of ever selling it. The car, when I read the Road and Track magazine specs on this car, the car doesn't need anything. It's just a supercar all on its own. So I haven't done anything to it. It's only got 11,000 kilometers on it. I just drive it on the weekends. I'm lucky enough right now to own this particular car, and it is my current dream car. Who knows what the future will bring, but right now I have no plans on selling this car. I'm so lucky to have it. I grew up in the late 60s in the muscle car era. I dropped out of school the day I turned 16. I was working at a gas station at the time, and the owner there signed me up as an apprentice mechanic. One of the first things that I did, my buddies had muscle cars and I wanted one as well. So I talked to my father. He was willing to co-sign a loan for me, and I ended up buying a 1969 Dodge Corvette 500, which was a 383 4-speed. It's my first muscle car. A lot of the changes I made in that car, I raised the back end up, I put Krager mags on it. Then I decided to change the color of the car. When I originally bought it, it was a bronze metallic. Me and my buddies decided to strip the paint off, and we had it painted lacquer black with 2 white stripes going over the hood, the roof, and the trunk. We also put hood scoops on the front hood to give it that race car feel. So that car, I lived in that car on the weekends. We used to cruise in that car all weekend long. Saturday night was race night. We used to go out with our buddies, and it was like a scene out of American Graffiti. We would race each other in the middle of the night until the police came and broke it all up. That car, we cruised in that car all the time, and one of the cruises that I remember was me and my buddies. We cruised down to Detroit City to the famous Woodward Avenue. It was famous because the traffic lights were a quarter mile apart, and it was a straight line drag racing place where all the guys went. We had the Ford guys on one side, we had the Chevy guys on the other side, and then we had the Mopars, which I was part of. After I sold that car to my younger brother, I was looking around, and actually it was through my younger brother who showed me this 1969 Corvette convertible, 4-speed, It was 350 horse with 350 cubic inch displacement engine. It's a great car for cruising, especially with the top down. When I originally purchased that car, it was Corvette green. I decided, me and my buddies again, to strip the Corvette green, and we painted it red, Corvette red. We had so much fun with that car. It's a true muscle car, but the ride on it was very, very stiff. After I sold that car, my son was reading a Road and Track magazine 2002 issue. And in that magazine, they featured the Z06 Corvette, which was coming out, 405 horsepower, 350 engine, 6-speed manual transmission. And as it turned out, Chevy Corvette was going to celebrate their 50th anniversary in 2003 with the introduction of the 50th anniversary Z06 Corvette. As it happened, that was the same year that I turned 50. So I decided I wanted that car. So one day I walked into a Tim Hortons, and standing in line in front of me was Lee Monroe, who was the owner of the Chevrolet dealership in Paris, Ontario, and he sold Corvettes as well. So I approached him and I asked him if he had a Z06 in red 50th anniversary coming in, and he said he had one allocated to him for the year. I decided to buy that car right then and there on a handshake deal. The car came in. It's the car we're driving in today. It's 2003 50th anniversary, 350 engine, but 405 horsepower. The magazine article did not disappoint. The car was like a rocket. I couldn't believe the power and thrust that it had. It would just pin you in the seat. I still have the car today that we're cruising right now. One story that I can remember, when I first got the car back in 2003, I was cruising around, and out of Tim Hortons, 3 Mustangs pulled out. One was a Celine, and they were driving behind me and taunting me. Anyways, I just kept driving, cruising. So after a little bit of driving and taunting, we came to a traffic light, and the Celine was right beside me with his girlfriend looking at me and again taunting me. Anyways, when the light turned green, I hit the car first gear. By the time I hit second, the Celine was in my rear-view mirror. And I'll never ever forget the look on the owner's face. He couldn't believe that this old guy could just devastate his car the way I did. Anyways, we drove a little further and I pulled over, he pulled over, we had a chat, and that was that. The car has just been amazing. Today it has about 11,000 kilometers on it. The other thing I wanted to mention was I ended up buying that car, this car that I'm driving, that we're cruising in right now, because my teenage son brought it to my attention. And the other thing I want to say is when I first got that car, I gave him the keys and told him he could drive it any time that he wanted, which he did. He learned how to respect that car and loved it just as much as I did. And what's really interesting about the way things work out, my son, he now owns a Z06 2008 with 505 horsepower. We've never raced, but maybe someday, I don't know.
This is a 2008 Corvette Z06. I've had this car for just over 12 years. This particular car I've been researching for months at the time, both in Canada and the United States, and I happened to find this particular car in Leesburg, Virginia. And so I drove to the US, picked it out. It was a wonderful value. It's a well-known fact that the Corvette Z06 and Corvettes in general are a supercar price at about a third the value of a supercar. So that's kind of how I arrived here, but always wanted a Corvette ever since I was a kid. And so the only modification is the LED lights. The LED lights kind of jazz it up a little bit. It's really great looking at night. Dream car? Well, if it wasn't another, the latest version of this being a C8 Z06, I've always had in the back of my mind a Porsche Carrera, a turbo Porsche Carrera. Yeah, this has got to be one of the most fun sports cars to drive. It's immediately, as soon as you start shifting, you can feel your butt being pushed right back into the seat. And when you're on the highway, it's really fun because you've got the heads-up display on the windshield. And when you're hitting the apex of a corner, getting onto the highway, you can see how many G's you're actually pulling in terms of gravity. And so it's actually kind of fun to see how fast you can actually hit the corner, and the car remains basically flat, giving a very exhilarating sports car riding feel. And it stops equally as fast as it accelerates. Yeah, the 6-speed manual is a whole lot of fun. As you can start to hear some of the exhaust throttle noise, it's really gets your heart pounding. The car is so really well geared, like the gear ratio, is it's actually very difficult to ever get into 6th gear because you have to be going about 140, 150 kilometers an hour to actually get there. There's not too many places where you can pull that off. Unless you're at Shannonville Speedway or Watkins Glen. I'll never forget when one of my sons pointed out, after having owned the car for about a year or so, he was killing himself laughing because I hadn't even noticed it, but the side mirrors have a sign on it that says objects in the mirror are losing, and that was the last thing on my mind. And he pointed it out. He's accusing me of putting those on the mirror, and I said, no, that's original. That came with the car, the previous owner. Anyway, pretty funny. But true, most cars are losing. Nice power. So what's also interesting about the Z06, not that many people would know this, but despite looking like a relatively normal Corvette on the outside, the Z06 is actually a racing supercar on the inside. Instead of a steel frame, it's a complete aluminum frame, and that's for weight saving. So it's a much lighter car than the regular standard car, even though it's got a bigger engine and it's more powerful. And it has on On the front and rear fenders, as well as the hood, it's carbon fiber. So much stronger than steel, but nowhere near the kind of weight. And the engineers were so concerned about, sorry about that, making the car accelerate like that, that they wanted the weight to power ratio to be very well balanced, and that it is. It's so well balanced, and they got the engine compartment so full of engine that they actually had no room for the battery. So they put the battery in the back in the trunk. Unlike most conventional motors, they have what they call a wet sump engine, whereby the camshaft is bathed in oil continuously, where the Corvette is known as a dry sump. And it's a very thin, shallow oil pan, and it's like that on purpose because the oil is actually stored in a vertical reservoir which keeps the oil from sloshing around. When you're hitting corners in the apex of a racetrack at top speed, the oil has got to be there. Otherwise, you're going to cause camshaft damage. And so the oil is always distributed very efficiently because of that setup. You never get any oil sloshing around because it's got nowhere to go other than directly to the dry sump. Wonderful feat of engineering, and specifically for race cars. High performance engines.
It's a 2012 Corvette Grand Sport Centennial version. Well, originally my dad bought it way back, and then we sold it, and we've just recently acquired it in the last 5 days. We picked up this, originally my dad picked it up because of the race stripes and because it is the Centennial version. He liked the rarity of it, and then we re-picked it up because of the story it has. There's no modifications to the car, it is bone stock. Well, I will get into why this is my dream car because of the story behind it. So yeah, originally my dad picked up this car in 2013, and it was made in 2012, so a year after, obviously. And he really liked the red accents of the car, the ghost stripes down the middle, and obviously the fact that it was a Centennial version, so a little bit more rare, less of them on the road, you know. And unfortunately, you know, we drove around in a lot, but he passed away in 2017. And we ended up selling the car in 2018, obviously to my demise. I was pretty upset about it, but we saw not the exact version, but the race version of it with the red wheels driving around St. George about a week ago. My mom saw it, and it got to thinking and looking into where the actual car was so we could try and buy it back, or maybe even just the same Centennial version, but not the exact SIN number. And she called the dealer that we got it from and asked if he could contact the people that originally bought the car back when we sold it in 2018 to let them know the story and ask if they're willing to sell it or if they're trying to keep it. And originally the guy said he wasn't too sure about it. He loves the car, obviously a collector. He hadn't put any kilometers on it. Loved the car, was very unsure about selling it. So then apparently when the wife found out the story behind it being my dad's car and wanting to buy it back for the family, she said that they had to sell it. And the guy called us back and let us know, I think that was 4 days ago, and then on a Wednesday, we went and we picked up the car and met the family. We go up to the guy's garage, lifts up the garage, and the whole garage, 2-door garage, the only one sitting in there is this Corvette, and he's got the decked out black walls, black flooring, Corvette symbols everywhere. It's the 100th anniversary. So he obviously loved the car a lot, and it was pretty sad to be seeing it going. But it was good to know it was like kept by someone who kept such good care of it, loved it, and fortunately didn't put too many miles on it before we got it back. So it's a pretty good story. And then, yeah, and then 2 days later, here we are at the car show. So I think one of the best things about the car is the red stitchings on it, obviously on the inside. And I don't know what the style would be called for these buttons, but the push buttons, the very, very nice interior. The black, all black, kind of like a Batmobile, is what my dad used to call it, his Batmobile kind of vibe. And the red accents, obviously. The fact that the roof comes off in the middle. Yeah, so after we got the car back, I haven't learned to drive stick yet. I was supposed to learn a long time ago, but obviously when we sold the car, there wasn't really much of a need for me to know standard. But now that we got it back, and I will be taking the car over one day from the family, you know, it is going to be inherited by me. I need to learn some stick, so we're looking into learning that, and then absolutely ecstatic to be driving this thing around, showing it off a bit, only in the best weather, of course. This has been my dream car to buy back. We didn't originally plan to get the car back or anything. It was more of a spur of the moment, emotional decision to get it back recently, but I obviously had wanted to get a car like this. I really wanted to get a Corvette when I was older, when I had the means to, only because it was my dad's car. Obviously, he drove Corvette. I wanted to get a Corvette, like father, like son, and this was my dream car. So I'm very fortunate to have received my dream car before I had to go out and buy one for myself. And the fact that it is the exact same car that my dad used to drive with only 600 more kilometers on it, kind of feels like it stayed in the family, and you know, it is our family's car, and obviously with the sentimental value behind it, very much more meaningful to me than I would assume others for the car. That is why it is my dream.
Okay guys, thank you so much for watching The Cruise TV. If you'd like to be featured on future episodes, please reach out to us on our Instagram. Again, I'm your host, Stephanie Lastoria, and we will catch you on the open road.